These days, China does more than a quarter of the world's manufacturing, in a big jump since, they entered the WTO 20 plus years ago. Now, as a result, people all over the world can buy stuff at really cheap prices. Is there some sort of a horrible downside to this?
Yeah, U.S. manufacturing has declined as Chinese manufacturing grew. So back after World War II, U.S. produced about 50% of all worldwide manufacturing, and we've gradually declined. And specifically, we've had a trade deficit that's grown from zero in 1979 to $1.2 trillion last year, and about a third. 40% of that deficit is in goods and things is due to our trade deficit with China. And so the U.S. has lost about 2 million manufacturing jobs to China out of about 6 million total manufacturing jobs that we would have if we had balanced trade instead of this huge trade deficit. So we're a much weaker economy because of the trade deficit in general and China in particular.
Well, I feel like, when I learned this in school about U.S. manufacturing, it was kind of like, okay, it's okay. We're now a service economy.
Right. And the amount of other non-farm jobs, mostly service stuff has gone up tremendously since we've lost this manufacturing. So what's the problem? Aren't these better jobs?
They aren't better jobs. The manufacturing jobs pay better than service jobs. People that come out of high school, go into apprenticeships and become a toolmaker, a welder, a precision machinist, on average make as much or more than university graduates, especially liberal arts university graduates. The loss of those jobs makes the companies, there were tens of thousands of companies that disappeared along with this, is a huge drain in tax revenue to the federal government. It minimizes or weakens our industrial manufacturing capability, so defense capability. So right now, you've probably seen the studies, the special committee, I guess it is, select committee in Congress did a simulation of what would happen if we had a war over Taiwan. And in 2 weeks, we ran out of munitions, missiles, rockets, howitzer shells, everything. And especially now that we're supporting the Ukraine, we're supporting Israel, and trying to be prepared for Taiwan if that happens. We don't have anywhere near the industrial capability. We don't make enough steel. We don't have enough machine tools. Don't have anywhere near the capability to do what we did in World War II when we were the arsenal of democracy and were able to make the difference by what we were able to provide in that war effort. So if we're a service economy, good luck reciting poems and to the invading army if you can't make the munitions and the tanks and and everything else you need. So you need a significantly strong manufacturing base to survive as a nation, and we're at the edge of not having that.
I mean, so you bring up a really good point about, it weakens our national defense to not have this capability. But I also like what you said about, these are actually higher paid jobs often than service, and they don't require a liberal arts degree, which means the next generation doesn't have to go to college. They can go to trade school and they can get paid more.
Can they, though?
Unless if manufacturing moves back to the United States, I think is the point, right?
I did a study a couple of years ago, and I took the average, the lifetime income of an English major, by age, and then the income of a toolmaker, an apprentice toolmaker. Of course, the apprentice toolmaker starts at 18 and is making an income, while the English major is spending $30,000, $40,000 a year on getting the degree. I took the difference in income. Toolmaker always made more. Took the difference in income, paid half of it in income tax, and invested the other half at 7%. And at the age of 49, the toolmaker had $1 million more net worth than the English major.
Wow. So, Shelley, you're English major.
I am an English major.
Total waste. You should have become a toolmaker.
That's what my parents always said. They definitely didn't want me to become a certified public accountant instead.
Well, at least you also have an economics degree, so there's something.
My son is a professor of Portuguese and Brazilian studies, so he did not listen to me.
Well, there you go. So we're going to talk a bit about the challenges of getting manufacturing back to the U.S., but like, why is it so cheap to make stuff in China compared to the U.S.? I mean, the obvious one is that people are paid less there, but there's got to be more to that.
But that's the overwhelming reason. And it's the wages in China now in manufacturing average about $7 an hour. And the U.S. in manufacturing, $21, $23 an hour, or something like that. So it's a third of what it is here. That's how China was able to start out being so low cost, because even 20 years ago when they really got going, it wasn't $7 an hour, it was 50 cents an hour. Okay, so they started out with really low wages, were able to attract tons of work. They therefore dramatically increased their output. They bought new machine tools, robots, built new factories. Right now, if you go there and you look at Chinese factories compared to U.S. factories, the Chinese factories are much newer, typically more automated than ours. So you've got low-wage people, hardworking low-wage people who really appreciate their jobs. In many cases, better trained people than ours because they have training programs, et cetera. And so you've got all that, and therefore the combination allows them to produce the product for about 70% of the cost of making something in the U.S. And that's a huge difference. And it's not just the assembly plant. If you look at the assembly plant, like say where the car is assembled, the amount of labor content there is not huge as a percentage of the total cost, but there's the labor content in making the axles and making the gears and making the tires and making the glass and everything else, and all this stuff that comes together and brings with it a lower cost. And therefore, when you put all that together, the Chinese cost on average is 70% of the U.S. cost, and that's enough to attract companies to go there to get take advantage of those lower costs. So what we do to overcome that, we offer the TCO estimator, total cost of ownership estimator, which helps the company not just look at the price, that FOB price or Ex Works price, but add in the duty and the freight and the carrying cost of inventory and the risk of stocking out and the intellectual property risk, all these kinds of things. And when they do that, they find a very different picture. In fact, so if you look at that, the horizontal axis, the axis across the bottom, is China price as a percentage of U.S. The blue line is the Ex Works or FOB price, and you can see the peak of it is around 70%, so about like I said. We did this for the first 190 cases of users using our TCO estimator to do this calculation to decide should they source in China, should they source in the U.S. But when the calculation calculates the total cost, all these other factors included, it shifts to the red line. And if there happens to be a 15% Trump tariff, Section 301 tariff, it shifts to the yellow line. And and you can see how it moves to the right. The U.S. becomes more competitive by that method of measurement. The key thing is to look at the numbers in the lower right-hand corner. So you can see based on price, the U.S. wins 8% of the time. Based on total cost, 32%. And if there's a 15% tariff, then 46%. So just by getting the companies to do the math correctly, dramatic amounts of work can come back to the U.S. without increasing inflation, without making it impossible for people to afford refrigerators and stoves and cars and things like that.